Hi, I'm Katie Couric. Welcome to Eye to Eye. Filmmaker Michael Moore calls for an overhaul of the U.S. healthcare system in his new movie called Sicko. But will this one movie make an impression on the American public? Correspondent Jeff Greenfield talked with Moore at the premiere in New York.
I remember having this conversation with you 3 years ago about 9/11. Is this a movie where you think most of the people who show up are going to have an impulse to changing healthcare, or do you actually think this movie is going to change minds?
I think this movie will change minds. I think with Fahrenheit 9/11, probably a lot of people who went to see it already didn't like what was going on. In this case, I'm asking people to consider a lot of things maybe they haven't thought about, and I'm going to take them to places around the world that they haven't been to and show them things they haven't seen. And I think that will make it not only very entertaining, but also when they leave the theater, I think there's going to be a lot of discussion about what we need to do.
If the goal is to change the dialogue and have people think in a different way about what critics have called socialized medicine, to think of it more as an American kind of fits into the American experience like public firefighters, what's the Cuba part of the movie doing in there?
Well, we didn't really set out to go to Cuba. We wanted to go to Guantanamo Bay, which is our naval base there, to get the 9/11 rescue workers who aren't getting health care, to give them the same health care that we're giving the al-Qaeda detainees. They get free universal health care, dental care, everything down at Gitmo. Can't we at least give our 9/11 rescue workers the same treatment? Of course, I didn't get that treatment. You're looking at me like you really think they were going to let you in, Mike.
You're right. I have a feeling.
Honestly, yes. I believe that sooner or later one of these people are going to call my bluff. Whether it's the chairman of General Motors, whether Mr. Bush, or Gitmo, they're going to go, you know what? This time let's let him in and just see what he does.
Fine. I'll retain my skepticism that you actually thought those powerboats would get into Guantanamo. But my point is, if your view is people have been conditioned, brainwashed, whatever the right word is, by the media and the big shots, to recoil at government health care.
Yes.
I can understand what Britain and France and Canada are doing to the movie, but
Cuba?
Castro said, wait a minute, he's a Marxist-Leninist, he's a dictator.
Exactly, that's my point. Here, in a dictatorship that is one of the poorest countries in this hemisphere, they're able to provide universal health care for all of their citizens, and they end up living longer than we do in the U.S. They have a better infant mortality rate than we do. How do they do that? And it should be disgusting and embarrassing to most of us as Americans that Cuba can pull that off, and we can't. And that's why we went there, to show the most obscene example of how it can happen, and it should be happening here. You know, the American people oftentimes are ahead of the politicians. So while the politicians maybe are afraid to deal with Cuba, 62% of the public, according to the last poll, does not support this embargo against Cuba. And I think, too, after getting everybody all hepped up about Saddam's the boogeyman, Saddam's going to attack us, I don't think we want to hear any more from the government telling us who our enemy is or who we should be afraid of.
What do you think the Democratic and Republican candidates for president, where are they on health care compared to where you want them to be? You want a government, you don't just want universal health care, you want a government-run system. You want the doctors working for the government.
Or some nonprofit that the government sets up to run them.
Okay.
But yes, no, we can no longer have a system where private health insurance is calling the shots. We have to remove profit. Profit should never be discussed when we're talking about helping somebody who's sick. Nobody should ever have to ask the question, geez, if we actually give that person that operation, how will it affect our bottom line? So to answer your question about the candidates, I don't think the candidates of either party have done a very good job on this issue. I mean, you hear the Democrats say, oh, health care for everyone. But what does that really mean? Most of the candidates, I think, still support taking our tax dollars and giving it to the private insurance companies in their so-called universal plans. Eliminate the middleman. I don't want my tax dollars going to line the pockets of these billion-dollar corporations. We should just be giving the care directly to the people. And you know, the government used to do things pretty well. They still do some things pretty well, like Social Security. And I'd like to just start electing people that know how to run the government properly. That's been our problem.
You kind of say very nice things about Hillary Clinton's initial effort at healthcare, and then you say she sold out. Her healthcare plan in '93 was all about private insurance companies, pharmacy companies. There wasn't not an ounce of that. And I wasn't sure why you went so far in her favor in the '93 plan.
Because 14 years ago, at least Hillary was willing to stick her neck out and say we need to address this. and that all Americans should be covered regardless of whether they have a job or not, and no pre-existing conditions. Nobody was saying that at the time. She said it. Her plan was very flawed, and it involved these private insurance companies, and it failed. But I give her credit for doing that. But 14 years later, she is now the number one Democrat in the Senate in terms of receiving money from the healthcare industry, and that's a very sad thing.
I can think back to examples of cultural events, whether they were novels or nonfiction books that had a big political impact. Uncle Tom's Cabin, The Jungle, Silent Spring, Unsafe at Any Speed. Maybe the China Syndrome helped kick up the anti-nuke thing because it had the good luck to happen right after 3 Mile Island. But I can also think of a lot of examples where people like me thought, oh, this is going to make a big difference. The right stuff was going to help John Glenn get elected president. Howard Stern backing Kerry didn't. So is there a limit to what non-political or at least cultural efforts, like a movie, can do to impact the political process?
We can go either way on that.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I'm not looking into the crystal ball.
Okay.
I'll say this. We're about to find out whether this film will be a tipping point when it comes to this issue. A lot of people think that it will be. I don't know. I worry. I can't imagine somebody saying to their wife or, hey, let's go to that healthcare movie tonight. But hopefully they'll understand that I've made it in an entertaining way. It's funny, and by the end of the movie, I think you're going to leave feeling that, wow, I haven't seen anything like that in a while. And let's go have a drink and talk about that.